That's how they combine.
Good afternoon. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the school board meeting this Tuesday, June 6, 2023. This public is encouraged and welcome to address the school board at the hearing of citizens. The board clerk, Kathy Tompkins, collects the cards for our hearing citizens over here to the left. Once the hearing of citizens begins, no more cards will be collected, and I will call you forward at the appropriate time. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I know we do not have a student representative, and being that the summer is here, we do not have any special presentations, so we'll be moving on to the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. A reminder to register your child for the 2023-24 school year. Families, if you haven't done so already, please begin registering first-time students as well as re-registering existing students for the upcoming school year. You can visit www.sarasotacountyschools.net/register for more information. And I just want to share that really helps us with staffing purposes. The sooner we know the enrollment at school sites, we're able to properly staff to start the new year. Summer meals, free food for kids 18 and under, thanks to the generosity of our local community. Sarasota County Schools and All Faith Food Bank are once again partnering to provide free food and meals this summer. Items include breakfasts, lunches, groceries, and snack bags for kids. For locations and times, please visit www.allfaithfoodbank.org/food finder, or you can call 941-379-6333. April SCS Cares recipient, we'd like to congratulate Mr. Russell Dennison, who's a bus driver with Transportation Services, who received the Cares of the Month for April 2023. Russell is an amazing driver. He came to Tatum Ridge for our kindergarten roundup and drove our new kindergartners and parents for a brief ride. He is kind, compassionate, and professional to our new families. We are so thankful that Russell attends this event. We're so appreciative that he is so professional and helpful at the kindergarten roundup. And finally, just want to share that to learn more about the superintendent search timeline, you can visit our website for the latest updates and the timeline. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to hearing of citizens. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. When the timer flashes yellow, 1 minute remains and you'll need to begin to summarize. Please stop speaking when the buzzer rings. To the audience, please note that respect for divergent viewpoints and civility will be shown at every board meeting. Whether you agree or disagree with the speaker, you should listen politely and respectfully without making without making any sounds of approval or disapproval, including clapping. I recognize there's a lot of passion and emotion that comes before this board that impact the decisions our students, families, and community have to make. As such, I believe it is important that we afford the opportunity for every speaker to be heard. To my fellow board members, any comments during hearing of citizens that you would like to respond to will take place at the conclusion of public comment. My request is that when you do respond, you keep it to the issues that have been brought forward and refrain from directing it to any individual of the public. Per statute 1001372, parent 3, anyone causing a disruption will first be given a warning, and if the conduct does not stop, will be asked to be removed from the chambers. We have 30 speakers, and I will call the first two up. First is Barbara Vaughn, and Sheila Van Ness. And my apologies in advance if I do not. Do not.
Good afternoon. As usual, first of all, you know I'm Barbara Vaughn, and as usual, I'm going to pray. Father God, we give you thanks and praise for the many wonderful blessings you shower upon us. We thank you, as always, for our children, our students. We ask you to guide them, comfort them, lead, guide, and direct them in their every step. And help their parents, Lord, to do the best things for them. We ask you, Lord, to bless the school board, bless those who are here in the room today, and bless all of our candidates, Lord, who applied for the supervisor's position. We sincerely thank them for their interest, Lord, and we hope, we expect that you will be with the decision makers in weighing these candidates' qualifications carefully, thoughtfully, and prayerfully, so that we find the best candidate available. We now thank you, God, for bringing us all together this afternoon. We pray, Lord, that this will be a good and civil meeting, everything on an even keel, and let us be kind to one another, Lord, even when we don't agree. We can disagree and still be agreeable. Lord, help us to make that our aim. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Sheila Van Ness, John Kesich, my apologies.
It's nice to see all of you today. Hope you're having a good early summer. My name is Dr. Sheila Van Ness, and I'm a lifelong educator. And what I wanted to do is to remind the board members, as you close in on your final selection for the superintendent, that you need someone that is going to represent the needs of all of the children, all of our precious children. The gay ones, the handicapped ones, the ones who are black, the ones who are Hispanic, the ones who are from immigrant families and don't speak English at first. So encompass your thinking when you select the person that is going to head up this wonderful organization. Be sure that it's someone who is capable of unifying and celebrating all of the many children and types of community that we have. We have a very diverse community. Let's honor each and every one. And I ask you to really give that thought when you make your final selection. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. John Kesich, I forgot. Did I say it right? Okay. Yes. And Rana Bazini.
John Kesich from Venice. I would like to remind people that Thursday, June 8th, is going to be yet another anniversary of the attack on the USS Liberty, which left 34 Americans murdered and 174 more wounded. 56 years is too long for no justice. If you don't know about this horrible event, I suggest you go to justiceforliberty.org, all one word, and learn about it. I would then urge you to contact your members of Congress and urge them for justice. I do have to warn people that in the years that I've been writing to senators and representatives in New York, Pennsylvania, and here in Sarasota, not one of them has had the decency to reply. I would also like to talk about the 5th grade teacher up in Hernando County who was investigated for showing a PG Disney film after collecting parental approval from every student. So, the woman who filed a complaint was a school board member and has been variously described as either a member of or endorsed by Moms for Liberty. I fail to understand how ignoring the parental permissions given by the parents is taking into account the rights of the parents. But, hey, I might be stupid, I don't know. Anyway, it turns out, as far as I understand it, that DeSantis's extension beyond, what was it, third grade or something, to include the fifth grade, doesn't go into effect until July 1st. Now, he made a big deal out of the fact that it was going to be only, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds who were going to be affected by this bill, but now it's going to be everybody in the elementary schools. Wonderful. That's honesty for you. Anyway, the final thing I would like to discuss is the latest lunacy up in Tallahassee, which is including Mosaic's toxic waste in pavement. I don't know if anyone here thinks that uranium or radon is good for little children, but you can bet that it's going to end up polluting our air and water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Verona Bazini, Jennifer Cottrell. Rana. I'll get there eventually.
Oh, it doesn't, you know I don't care. Good afternoon, my name is Verona Bazini, and I'm a resident of Sarasota. Where to begin? While watching the workshop this morning, I was thinking about what I was going to say at this meeting. At the time, it appeared I was going to say something really positive. Then, as my son would say, the defecation hit the ventilation. I miss his sayings. And ever since he died, I've adopted surrogate sons, one of whom is Tom Edwards. So, as your surrogate mother, I have to chastise you for your behavior this morning. It was not the time or place, even though what you were saying may have been true. By the same token, even though she's not a surrogate daughter, I have to disagree with Robin Marinelli. We've always had a very pleasant relationship. The politics and animosity did not start when this board was installed. Did you forget the vitriolic speeches and the chaos that started long before you were elected to the board? The very personal vindictive attacks on Tom Edwards, not to mention the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers patrolling the parking lot and stalking a previous board member. People were actually afraid to come to school board meetings. Now, I admit to being biased, but I don't sense the vitriol in those attending and speaking now. By and large, of course there are exceptions, but mostly their arguments are based on fact and respectful. You are about to select a new superintendent. Let's hope if they were watching today, they haven't all pulled their applications. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jennifer Cottrell, Dr. Jill Lewis Spector.
Jennifer Cottrell. It's hard to follow a speech like that, but I'll give it a shot. Good afternoon, board members and Dr. Foster. I had a speech all prepared as I was watching the workshop, but now it's irrelevant. I had every intention of applauding the board for coming together and working together so well. But then at the end of the workshop, it all went out the window. I had high hopes that we'd finally turned a corner and we're going to put our egos aside for the sake of the students and find a way to respectfully work together. But my hopes did not become reality. That is sad because earlier in the workshop, you were all making such good progress and being so cordial to one another. Either way, our students are watching this, and they look to all of you as leaders and will follow the way you lead and represent them. So please, let's keep in mind as we move forward. I know some topics get heated, tempers and emotions can flare up, But keep in mind, our students are faced with these same frustrations at times, and we expect them to conduct themselves in a polite and respectful manner. We expect certain behaviors from our students, and as board members, this is your opportunity to show them how we rise above situations that happen and maintain civility, even when tempers flare. Again, I hope we can continue with some level of civility, as it's not only about any one of you sitting up there, it's about our students. Please keep that in mind, as they are the only ones that suffer because of these actions. You are here to represent them. So can we act like grown adults, please? And this is not just to any one board member, this is to all 5 of you. Stop playing games at the expense of our children. Enough is enough, please. When you guys are ready to take things seriously, then we can possibly come back and discuss the real issues that our students face. Because we have real educational concerns, and they impact a large amount of the student population. But again, the board meeting today will not be a forum for the students, as it will turn into a circus, just like the past few meetings. Please let the public know when you are ready to actually sit down and talk about the real issues surrounding the education of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Jill Lewis Spector and Lyla Newcomb.
Good afternoon, Board and Dr. Foster. I am Jill Lewis Spector. I am speaking for myself and not representing any organization. Last week, Collier County held its board meeting to discuss their superintendent finalists. One who was not chosen, Mr. Van Zandt, has also applied to Sarasota. He is a finalist. WGCU radio station reported that as part of his interview session, Mr. Van Zandt said he wanted to reach, and I quote, unchurched students in Collier County to address issues of failing morality and to teach Christian values. Not surprisingly, during the initial rankings round yesterday, Sarasota School Board member Bridget Ziegler ranked Van Zandt as her second choice. Mr. Enos ranked him third. Clearly, Ziegler and Enos have not been listening to our community. Van Zandt is exactly the kind of individual that Sarasota does not need leading our school district. It is exactly the kind of thinking that wreaked havoc on our board meetings. It is precisely why the community rejected Vermilion Consulting. We need a superintendent who values the diversity of the Sarasota community, who sees worth in all students, all teachers, all staff, regardless of religion, ethnicity, color, or pronoun preference. Regardless of claims to the contrary, our public schools do not indoctrinate. They do not tell students what to think. They teach all the ways false ideas are disseminated, an important step toward understanding, preserving, and strengthening our democracy. We see what some members of the school board are attempting to do. And if Mr. Van Zandt is chosen, the community will protest loudly against the board's attempt to turn our school district into Hillsdale College writ small. Our community is sick and tired of being a pawn in individuals' political ambitions and their attempts to shove their own Christian nationalism point of view down our children's throats and to indoctrinate them with false ideas, conspiracy theories, and fake history. Sarasota needs a superintendent who will be a unifier, a team builder. Mr. Van Zandt's agenda will tear us apart. He must be removed from the list. Thank you.
Thank you. Lyla Newcomb. Mary, I'm sorry, is it Ginley or?
Hi, Lyla Newcomb, grandma of 3 in Sarasota Public Schools. I think we've all seen the list of committee members chosen for the superintendent search. And to me, it appears to be in large part a politically driven list and not really suitable for school board matters. While there seem to be some appropriately very helpful persons there, the list seems to be laden with folks with political aspirations or members of extremist groups whose agendas are questionable at best. How many actual parents of children or even grandparents with children in public schools are there? How many teachers and administrators are there who have actual experience in the field of education and who will have to work under whoever is hired? I noticed one student on there. That's great. How about a little bit more Gen Z on there, since they have more at stake than anybody? Now, I want to try and make another somewhat related point, and I hope everybody hears this, and I hope I'm right about it. But anyway, I understand that some of the high schools have been experiencing bullying, as well as some bad behavior in restrooms. Now, I asked my older granddaughter, who's been at Booker High School for 3 years now, and she said she's unaware of anything happening like that at her school. Maybe, just maybe, that could have to do with the fact that there is inherently tremendous diversity in the school by its very nature, both due to the magnet programs there as well as the demographics of the school's location. Acceptance of other people different from oneself has to be a given there. Just maybe it goes to show everyone that people can get along if they just basically either accept each other's differences or mind their own business. Top this off then with a very effective principal, a leader, and there you have it. So now, back to the hiring of a new superintendent. Hiring someone in line with anybody's personal beliefs, whether political or religious, is not necessarily going to calm down the fear and hatred that is rampant around here these days, which is only interfering with learning. I hope you will hire an individual who not only has appropriate education and experience and is not politically driven, but is also an effective leader, and then let that person lead, as is part of the job description. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm sorry, is it Mary Ginley? Yes. Okay. And Linda Bell.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Ginley. I was a teacher for 42 years and I loved it. One of the things I learned during those 42 years was how important it is to have a good superintendent. It's going to take all of us working together to help our kids grow up to be responsible, productive adults. And no matter how dedicated our teachers are, no matter how hard our principals are working, without a competent, caring leader at the top, we just aren't going to make it. And you know that as well as I do. You hired a consulting firm who sought input from the community. We ask that you keep politics out of your decision. We ask for someone with a strong background in education and educational leadership. We ask for someone with a track record in leadership who has shown that they can do what they promised to do. Why, then, is it that one of our final four candidates is a strong conservative who clearly wants our schools to impart good, middle-class Christian values? Why does another have absolutely no background in educational leadership? Why do two of the final four have minimal experience in managing a school district like ours? Why do those two have no teaching experience? Do we really want someone leading our schools who has no clue what it's like to be in a classroom? While I was surprised that you appeared to have not the slightest interest in any candidate who didn't already live in Florida, we obviously have a candidate who seems to check the boxes. According to his resume anyway, Terrence Cooper has experience in building partnerships, has had positive relationships with school personnel. He's shown that he will listen to all the voices in the community, even old ladies like me. He understands the value of early childhood education. He's worked with communities where diverse cultures are valued and empowered. I think he'll make sure that all students, not just white, middle-class, straight Christians who go to church, are safe in our schools. I wish you weren't rushing to make this decision. Superintendents need at least 5 years to make a real difference in his district. You don't want to send the next one packing in a year or so. Before you offer Terrence Connor or anyone else this job, I beg you to do a deep dive into their resumes. Talk to as many varied people as you can where they currently work and make sure they are who they say they are. Our children's lives depend on it. You are being entrusted with one of the most important tasks of your job, and I am begging you to do it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Bell and Bill Hayes.
Good afternoon, everybody. And it's a pleasure to be speaking to this civic group on the anniversary of D-Day. I want to thank all the veterans here for their service, whether they served in that war or any war. It's a real service to us all, and thank you. Like many residents of Sarasota, I'm a senior, but I also have no children, no grandchildren, and no relatives who are in the Sarasota County schools. But it's these kids who are going to grow up and be my caregiver. They're going to give me the right change at CVS. They're going to be our leaders of tomorrow, and that's what I care about. And in order to turn out good and responsible citizens, all of them need to be taught, all of them need to be heard. And, you know, I have a real problem with the don't say gay thing, because, come on, it's a metaphor for don't respect those kids who are gay. They can't help it. No one chooses to be gay. And it's not catching. It's not like being among other students is going to get them gay too. These are just our kids. They're going to be our future. They all need the same access to good education and to all of our history, whether it's unpleasant or not. And I hope that our next superintendent, and guess what? I don't even care who it is, but I hope our next superintendent will champion those kids that might be on the fringe, who already are having a little bit of a hard time because of not being included in everything in their schools. That's my prayer for our kids for tomorrow, and my wish for you guys to do the right thing and get them there.
Thank you. Bill Hayes, Lindsay Howell.
Hi, I'm Bill Hayes, and really I'm just here to ask that you look at people that have been and had similar experiences by the size of the area that they're coming from, that they're dealing with, you know, similar type people. I mean, there's a $1.4 billion budget, and I brought this up before. Somebody needs to understand that budget, and not just that it's a dollar amount. It needs to be broken down how it's going to best help each area of the schools, how it's going to be done in grade schools, middle schools, and high schools, whether it's going to be done completely academic or not. There just needs to be somebody who has understood that. We don't need to learn on the fly. It's just too difficult in such a big area. And you know, we live in a gray world. It's completely gray. Everybody needs to understand that if I'm here and here, nothing gets accomplished until it meets in the middle. And that's just true in everything that you do. I just hope it's somebody who will, I really think that it should be somebody who has worked their way from the very bottom to the top, who understands each level, who has worked with teachers, who has worked with administrators, and can take those benefits and bring them to our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Howell and Reverend Jay Wolin.
Hi. Lindsay Howell, actual involved Sarasota County Public School parent. As I look at the pathetic list of candidates who are finalists for the superintendent job, present company not included, as this is an obvious dog and pony show, and we should just hire Dr. Foster, a person who has Sarasota County Schools' best interest at heart. But alas, this is no doubt due to the political circus that our current school board members have invited into our town for their own personal political goals. It should become apparent to you that the silent majority of moderate voters, like myself, are paying attention as you attack the institution in our county that has been celebrated and bestowed an A rating long before all of you sat in your seats. I hope you and your politically charged committee of citizens hiring this superintendent keep in mind that in this country, there's a separation between church and state. I'm hoping those who scream scream for liberty and freedom understand what that actually means. And let's be clear, church, where you worship, state, places like our public schools, they're different, and they should be, as our founding fathers intended. A tweet from our Florida GOP chair this past week, and I will paraphrase for time. I still want our borders to be secure and the economy to be strong, but I personally care more about my children being safe, both security and shielded from the sexuality indoctrination by the left during the 8 hours they are not in my custody. That's true kitchen table, end quote. This tweet is a joke and a farce. Why so scared of a place you are in charge of in this town? Why vilify our teachers? I know that many of you on the dais are scared of the imaginary woke mob coming after you. You shouldn't be. I'm a part of a group you actually should be scared of. Parents who want smart and sensitive leaders and legislation, not ignorant and hateful ones. I'm a white, heterosexual, college-educated Christian woman who teaches Sunday school. I am a part of a group of parents who are moderate voters, who send their kids to our public schools, who volunteer at these schools. And we are proud of our A district. We aren't full of hate and disdain for our teachers and administrators. We know that the LGBTQ community is not a threat to our children. We are a fast-growing group in this town. We are on both sides of the aisle. We are on your PTO boards and see straight through this fear-mongering and are done with the use of our children as puppets for your political gain. We want high-achieving, safe schools, period. High-achieving, safe schools. And we want the town we love not to be a national headline or joke. We are not woke. We are awake. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Reverend Jay Wolin, and then Carol Lerner. And I say your last name correct?
Hi, I'm Reverend Jay Wolin, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota. I live in Sarasota. Many of my members have children in or grandchildren in the schools here, and they are very concerned. Some of them identify as LGBTQIA, and they are concerned about the lack of inclusivity that is being demonstrated. Unitarian Universalism believes in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Each of us are unique and beautiful creations of the universe. We should be open to seeing that in ourselves as well as others. Whether that person is straight, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, gender non-binary, queer, intersex, or asexual. So in case you were wondering about what the IA was, that's intersex and asexual. We are all part of the same interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part of. We are all beautiful, and every child needs to be supported to reach their full potential, including their full academic potential, no matter their race, ethnicity, religion, economic position, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And it's why I request that when we are choosing a new superintendent, that we choose someone who supports a pluralistic view of the world that takes into account the needs of all of our students, someone that supports academic excellence of our public school systems. Unitarians were the founders of the kindergarten movement and public education in this country back in the 1800s when most people did not have access to education. The education is a way for people to improve their lives. And so I ask as well that public money go for public education so that everybody has an equal shot at moving and fulfilling their potential in the world. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time and your work.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you guys can do the jazz hands. We'll keep the clapping too. Keep moving. Carol Lerner and then Lisa Shur.
Good afternoon. Carol Lerner for Support Our Schools. We are at a very important juncture in terms of choosing a new superintendent. I am a retired but career educator. I worked in 3 different states, multiple school districts. I probably worked with maybe 10 to 12 superintendents over my 30-odd year career. And I agree with the comment said earlier that a superintendent is absolutely critical. I've worked with great superintendents, I've worked with mediocre superintendents, and lousy superintendents. So I can personally tell you how critical it is. I was actually going to talk quite a bit about Charlie Van Zant as the opposite of what we need, but Jill Spector Lewis pretty much said what I said, but there are a few more details that I would like to state, which is why I think he is totally unacceptable and should be disqualified. He also has a very troublesome behavioral record when he was on the school board and as an elected superintendent of Clay County. Teachers said that he treated them with disrespect, was indifferent to their needs and concerns, and essentially was a bully, leading by intimidation. So disturbed by his behavior, some voters switched parties. They became Republicans from independents and Democrats to vote for him, and they voted him successfully out of the primary. So he is really absolutely the opposite of what we need. Now, we're essentially down to three other candidates, and I think there are two that seem to be leading. Dr. Foster should be in that mix, but it seems like it's essentially down to Terrence Connor or Joe Phillips if we disqualify Van Zant, which I think we should. So I am disqualifying him for my speech tonight. I think it's a no-brainer that there really is only one viable candidate. And if you look at the characteristics that the board put forward, you put forward a list of characteristics. Characteristic number 3 says that a superintendent should be a data-driven educational leader with a demonstrated track record of school recordings of achievement and growth in learning for English as a second language and on exceptional learning, including students with special needs. Now let's contrast Phillips and Connor. Phillips has never worked as a teacher or even as an instructional aide. After an extensive military career, he worked only 8 years in a K-12 education setting, 3 of them as a manager of technology support services, and 5 of them as chief information officer in 3 different districts. While Phillips may have reached the first part of the characteristic as being data-driven, he in no way reached the third. Oh, well. I had a lot more to say, but Connor is quite the opposite. He was a lifelong educator.
Thank you very much.
He should be the one.
Lisa Shur and Michelle Posey.
My name is Lisa Shur. I'm one of the co-founders of Support Our Schools, and I don't even know where to begin today. I was hoping to say y'all were doing a great job today, and it was really a marvel to see, but that all went to HELL in a handbasket. So, I would say the same things as Verona Bazini, Jennifer Cottrell, Jill Spector, so we can get that out of the way. My first comment is addressed to you, Mrs. Marinelli. I abhor the idea that you or anybody else on this board is receiving death threats and are afraid for yourself, for your personal safety. So whoever the jackass is out there that's sending these death threats, stop it. Perhaps you understand now, however, how Mr. Edwards feels when he's personally attacked for his sexuality. I understand how you feel about the safety because when the Proud Boys were in the audience, I was afraid to go to my car, and I've received a few threats my way too. It's wrong, irregardless of who does it. You also said, Mrs. Marinelli, that nobody cares about education or the achievement gap, and I have to call you out on that. We most assuredly do. We have many times spoken of that. I don't know whether you're aware of why Support Our Schools was formed. It was formed for one reason and one reason only, to protect our public schools. We knew that all this culture war wedge stuff is a distraction. It's got not a darn thing to do with what's going on in this country, and that is the desire. And the Democrats were equally culpable of this 30 years ago and over the last 30 years, but they seem to have gotten their act together now. But the goal is to ensure that public education continues to flourish. What we feared has come to pass now. I mean, basically, our public schools are going to lose millions and millions of dollars to private schools, which operate with no transparency and no accountability. Who's going to pay the cost? Our marginalized students, particularly are ESE students. This means a lot to me personally because I have an ESE student and I have a sister who is developmentally disabled. So what you are doing with your school choice is stripping possibilities in education from these students, and that is unacceptable to me. I also want to make it clear that, speaking for myself, support our schools, and I think probably for a lot of people in this audience, nobody coordinates, nobody tells us what to think. We're grown-up adult people, many of us educated. We know what we think. We don't need to take orders from Tom Edwards or anybody else on this board. What we say is what we think. So if you want to stop the business about coordinated attacks and so on, please do.
Thank you. No, thank you. Mrs. Michelle Posey and Sally Nissa, before we go forward, and this has nothing to do with who's coming up. It's actually more about the tone that just took. We were doing really well as public comment prior to, even with some commentary. I would like to continue on that path if possible, and just move onward. Thank you. Michelle Posey.
No, I think she might be to me. No, just kidding. Welcome. My name is Michelle Posey. Today I wanted to speak about our superintendent search and the short list of candidates. I'm excited to see what Sarasota has the opportunity to do, and I'm excited for this next chapter. I want the board to know that I, along with the community, are praying that God gives you wisdom, guidance, and strength during the upcoming interview process. It sounds like you're going to have some long days. And I'm praying for all the candidates in their future endeavors as well. You'll hear a lot coming out in the next few weeks on this candidate or that candidate. You'll have an abundance of opinions thrown your way. And I thank you for selecting a community committee that has a heart for the future of this district. We have many positives. There goes that inclusion. We have many positives to look forward to, but there is something else that I need to address here today. In yesterday's workshop, the board member that represents my district, Tom Edwards, mentioned that there was one candidate on the short list that he would, quote, not even be interested in speaking with. I wondered if that meant he wouldn't speak to that candidate or if this was just a flamboyant comment he was making. Mr. Edwards also spoke about one candidate in particular and how this candidate described himself as a staunch conservative. You know, in the same way that you, quote, coined yourself as a woke school board member at a local event. You stated that this person being conservative disqualified him from the superintendent search. Do we not have laws that protect from discrimination during the hiring process? Did you, Mr. Edwards, just openly admit on public record that you are willing to discriminate against someone for being conservative? Don't we all know that any of the superintendents we select will undoubtedly have a political opinion of their own? Don't you have a political opinion of your own? Weren't you endorsed by the Democratic Party? You stated that you think a superintendent with conservative values is somehow a lightning rod in the political environment of this community, but you claiming that you're woke and building coalitions to work from the inside somehow isn't? Didn't you run under the guise of being a moderate? With school board elections not being a primary and being county-wide, I think it's worth stating for all of Sarasota County to hear that Mr. Edwards thinks someone who is conservative and who has the backbone to say that up front is somehow disqualified for that alone as our next superintendent. Did you hear that, Sarasota? Did that sound like inclusion coming out of the mouth of Mr. Edwards? Where was the heart for diversity when you made that statement in yesterday's workshop? Does your version of DEI not include Christians or conservatives? Again, you said you wanted somebody with a high level of adaptability and proven leadership, yet you will overlook a highly decorated Army veteran with superintendent experience because he dares to use the word conservative to describe himself. To the rest of you, thank you for having an open mind and putting the students first. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much, Sally Nissa. I'm sorry, and the members of the public, can you please keep your sound effects to your quiet? We were doing pretty well earlier on. And if you have uncontrollable yawning, you can take a step outside. Sally Nissa and Armstrong. Sandy Armstrong.
Sally Nista, I support our Constitution. Dear board members, my plan was to share yet another sexually explicit book that is in our Sarasota school libraries because this abuse to our children is not okay. But at your meeting yesterday, the chairwoman stated that input from the community was invited, so I'm pivoting just for today. My number one is Charles Van Sant. I liked him because he is full of transparency. The fact that he clearly states who he is in his letter is refreshing after watching past closet influencers. Van Sant's values match 90% of Sarasota County. I loved that he has already has a plan for Sarasota County and will hit the ground running. I believe because of his experience as a school board member and a superintendent, he understands the distinction between the two. The Sarasota School Board has been far overreaching in their responsibilities with operations of this district because of the poor leadership of the last two superintendents. Charles Van Zant will establish those boundaries, support himself with staff that is highly effective, and get this school district back to the academics and parents trusting. Having a leader who is transparent with decisions is key to me. This community is done with leadership who make backdoor deals and gets payouts from foundations. Charles Van Zant has the support from the young Republicans who are the future and are presently parents. If they have interacted with him and endorsed him, that is a feather in his cap and one this board should view positively. Dr. Joe Phillips also has the credentials, expertise, and experience, values that would make him a good fit in Sarasota County. I look forward to watching interviews and interacting with the candidates to further understand their leadership ability. I pray that your decisions are God-guided and inspired. Thank you for your work.
Elizabeth Bornstein and Sean Bartlett.
Hello, I'm Sandy Armstrong. I live in Sarasota. I'm just a little shaken after that because I think that a lot of prejudice just came spewing out. I think, number one, that we don't want to be political allies first. What we need to do, what each of you, I think I've asked every time I've been up here, is to honor all of our children, including our LGBTQ, our black, our brown, our red, our yellow children, and their parents and their rights, and to remember that all parents have rights, not just one that happens to have decide that they want to find pornographic materials in books. I don't know, I have better things I want to do with my reading, but I don't want kids to have porn either, and I know you don't either. I'm concerned that we might get a superintendent that wants to whitewash history and to not be fair with LGBTQ families and children. And we know that the laws are in that direction right now, so we need someone that can help protect these children and these families, to help them not feel like they don't belong, to help them stay here. I mean, if you want more families to leave, as you can see from the Herald Tribune, I think it was Sunday, a lot of them are leaving because of these laws. But wouldn't you like our state to be a place where everyone is welcome? I think that, we talk about religious and ideas and stuff. Well, I'm a Congregationalist, I'm a Christian, and we love all people. And I hope that, that everyone does. That doesn't mean I want my church sitting in the schoolroom. In terms of being woke, I think the governor called Mr. Edwards woke in the first place, and then Mr. Edwards, who was smart enough to know that what woke really means, as opposed to the governor's definition, is proud to be woke. And I think there are many people in our community who are proud to be woke and would like our school to be woke, all of our schools, safe. And I'm very concerned that this new superintendent is going to have to work on all of those things, plus a limited budget, because we're voting to put so many of our dollars into charter schools and private schools who don't have any way of making sure that all of our students are safe and all of our students are taught. And so then what happens to our public schools? So please be considerate, and please give this some real thought, because in spite of the laws, I don't think any of you really want to hurt these children and families. And that's what these laws are going to do. So we need somebody up there leading that will take care of them.
Thank you. Elizabeth Bornstein and Sean Bartlett.
Tough act to follow. Greetings, board members, interim superintendent, board attorney. My name is Elizabeth Bornstein. I'm a parent of a student in the district, and I come here because I have no choice but to come here and speak for the students, the teachers, and our Sarasota County schools. I'm also a taxpayer. I changed up what I was going to say also after watching the workshop, the video. I mean, I'm spending all my time on this. It's just unbelievable, really. I need to reiterate, I am a parent of a student here in Sarasota County Schools. My mission as a parent is to ensure my child's achievement as both a student and a human being, and I'm actively engaged in both. Your mission as the board is to fulfill the vision and the mission. The district of our district for every day, for every child. The school district of Sarasota County places learning at the center of its activities to enable all learners to lead productive, responsible, and healthful lives. That's our vision. Our mission is the school district of Sarasota County prepares students to achieve the highest learning standards by engaging a high-quality staff involving parents and a supportive community. Last time I was here, I was praising the 4 of 5 board members participating for your wonderful collaboration and productivity. It felt so hopeful and strengthening for the betterment of our A-rated school district. We all know collaboration is the key to success, and executed through the clearly defined vision and mission, which we have, but it has to be based on transparency and trust. In watching the workshop, it felt like Groundhog Day. Here we are again, miserable, stuck in this situation over and over again. You know, Madam Chair, you reacted today. You could have called a recess. We need a leader. We need a leader to not be reactive. We need a leader to not say that you don't care what opinions are of you. You know, your T-shirt, Casey DeSantis's jacket, we're where the woke go to die, right? I mean, that's what's being tweeted. That's what you subscribe to. You represent everything but achievement for Sarasota County Schools, and you've been a conduit for bringing politics and extremism here. Please stop. As a fellow parent, our school district isn't even suitable for your children. Last time I referenced saying, never trust a person that has let you down more than 2 times. Once is a warning, twice is a lesson, and anything more than that is simply taking advantage. I'm shaking my head. You voted, 4 of you, to let go a stellar superintendent. Now look at the pool we have to choose from. They are not as adequately qualified. We need to get this train in the right direction. We need to find the most qualified person.
Thank you. Sean Bartlett, Norman Wertz.
Hello, I went to all Sarasota schools, elementary, Sarasota, Brookside, Sarasota High School. I'm back retired here. My adopted kids always went to public schools. A couple of things. One, in terms of reading novels that may have some mild sexual content in it. Any kid from 7th grade through high school that wants porn, they ain't going to read to get it. They get it online. And you may think you're controlling it in your household, but you're not. They have friends.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, please.
If you want to worry about porn, worry about what they're accessing online. I mean, 10, 12 years ago, my son went to a party, and it was like, middle school, and in one room, the kid, he had to leave. He was so upset about what he saw. So, additionally, this whole grooming thing is hysterical. My kids were raised with 2 moms.
Please keep the comments to the
They
board.
went to pride events. They went to drag shows. They had 2 moms. My son, who was going to be an engineer, decided to major in musical theater, and he's straight. Okay? So obviously, a failure. So at any rate, when it comes to, I'm only going to talk about criteria. If you're going to a heart surgeon, you want someone with experience and a broad level of experience. A successful candidate will bring a broad understanding of educational policy, teaching, administration, and fiscal management. For Sarasota's A-rated public schools, the chosen candidate should have a master's or a doctorate degree focused on education. Also essential is a minimum of 5 years teaching experience in public schools and 3 years of administrative or supervisory experience in pre-K through 12 diverse public school settings. Our district public school requires a superintendent with exceptional fiscal and budget management skills, as well as school finance experience, given the impact on the district of the recent universal voucher and new charter school required capital outlay legislation. The candidate must have sufficient background and experience in public education to be able to set the vision and the goals for the district, establish academic standards, strategic planning, and implement policies that enhance the quality of education in our public school district. Our community's current polarization requires a superintendent with strong verbal, written, and digital communication and team-building skills to promote transparency, trust, and a sense of community ownership in the education system. Right now, in the 4 applicants, people are barely making it.
Thank you very much. Norman Wertz, and then after that, we're going to change out the battery on the microphone, and it'll take about 2 minutes. So,
Hello. 79 years ago on D-Day, the Allies went offshore in Normandy to fight fascism in Europe, and we continue the fight today to fight fascism in Florida, as evidenced by the fact that Florida has 5,294 teacher vacancies and 2,217 vacancies when the governor took charge. So he is succeeding in that. And here's my favorite math question of the day. This Catholic school in St. Petersburg, who were charging $6,000 a year tuition, have raised their tuition to $10,000 because they know that the parents are getting $8,000 and they still have $4,000 left over to lower the tuition, but the church is getting that extra $4,000 and they expect to have an additional $1 million of revenue going into that parish this year. So there's where your school voucher money is going. If $60 million is the cost of the vouchers, probably there's $30 million of it going into the private schools and the Catholic schools and the other churches for no good reason. I wonder if anybody thought of that. Now here's a multiple choice question that probably won't show up in the schools here. Teachers feel prosecution over classroom discussions is a recent headline. Where is this occurring? A, Communist China, B, Russia, C, Cuba, D, Iran, E, Florida, F, all of the above. I'll go with F. Here's a quote from George Carlin, one of my favorite philosophers. Don't teach your children to read. Teach them to question what they read. Teach them to question anything, everything. The value of an education is not learning of many facts, but training the mind to think. I doubt that that's part of the Hillsdale curriculum. And lastly, here's a good one from Alexandre Dumas. The difference between genius and stupidity is genius has its limits. Keep that in mind also. Thank you.
thank you. We'll take a 3-minute recess. We just need to change out the battery.
supposed to be.
They've already workshopped a lot of this. Like yesterday, they talked about I think
So are they done with like the
I think it's 30, and I think
That's what I'm there.
yeah, public reaction to the first one.
It's like a new.
So I do a little bit on this.
Only have 5 minutes.
One minute. If everyone can please have their seats. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can please have your seats, or you can take your conversations out in the hallway. Thank you. That person could be our sergeant of arms. Linda Larson, and Linda Larson's up next, and Linda Wilson. Give them a minute. I have Linda Larson and Linda Wilson.
I'm Linda Wilson, but I don't know Linda Larson.
Linda Larson? Okay, we'll take. And thank you, by the way.
Thank you. I happen to be very involved with the last election, and it was an overwhelming vote from parents, members of the community to support Governor DeSantis, and basically it was about parents and community members supporting the Parents' Bill of Rights. I happen to have worked in the Sarasota County Schools. I know the reason why Dr. Asplin was fired and asked to leave, because he did not love the children. He did not put the children's well-being...
Quiet in the chambers, please.
He did not put the children's well-being first. I had the letter that was given to him every superintendent in Sarasota County, from Superintendent Concord in Tallahassee, to tell every parent, every member of the community how unsafe masks were for children. He never passed that out. He also allowed our school district to shut down, and we had to go to court to get the children back in school, and Governor DeSantis won that. He allowed the woke agenda to come in when clearly that was the whole point of the election, and it was not a close election. It was a resounding election of what we stood for here in Sarasota County. The reason I'm speaking today is at the last meeting, it was brought up to bypass the rules of for the Parents' Bill of Rights and allow children to check out school books that were on the permission-only list, that they may be questionable school book, and the parent needed to be from the library, and the parent needed to be informed about it. As a former teacher in the district, that's very important, because at the beginning of the school year, you do not want, especially in kindergarten and first grade, you do not want these young parents filling out lots of forms and not knowing what they're signing. These young parents are just trying to do their best for their children, and so I hope you absolutely will not allow that. And I am waiting for the day for you to get rid of all the critical race theory books out of the library. And also, the book Stamped should not be an AR book at all. So that should be removed. I want to tell you, read something briefly to you that happened thousands of years ago that is not uncommon for adults to put what they want, their agenda, in front of the needs of the child. But we are here to support children and what is at their best interest. This is chapter 18, verses 1 through 6 from Matthew. At that time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?"
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in the chambers, can you please be quiet? And then one more thing. We're not doing displays of any kind of protest. If you can't take your seat, you can happily go out into the hallway.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paulina Testerman, Shannon Clement.
Good afternoon. I'm Paulina Testerman. I do not want to be here today. I had planned to stay home today, but I watched today's the workshop, and I was just fuming. I was so angry. Watching adults lie through their teeth is exhausting, and coming here today and holding you accountable is taking time away from my family and my life. Mrs. Ziegler, you have become so adept at lying that I fear you believe your own lies. Today, you yet again gaslit Mr. Edwards and blamed him for being wildly inappropriate when he held you accountable for your countless lies. In the span of 14 days, Mrs. Ziegler, Mr. Edwards asked you 6 times to provide your supporting documentation for the Vermilion Brief. 6 times. That is your legal responsibility on this board. You stated emphatically that you provided the documentation. Yes, you could have been mistaken. Yes, it could have been an oversight. Yes, you are human. Most of us are more angry at your inability to take accountability for your mistakes and publicly explaining what happened when instead of your lack of transparency. That's the problem, is your lack of transparency to say, I made a mistake and this is why. But you didn't do that. And it took a public records request for me to figure out why you're lying and how you're lying. Still to this day, the Vermilion Brief has still not been publicly noticed. We as the public still don't know what the board saw, nor the amended brief. For a woman who ran on transparency, you sure work hard to work outside of the sunshine. Do not confuse being held accountable to your unprofessionalism and your ineptitude as personal attacks. Mr. Edwards is simply holding you accountable, and apparently that triggers you. Mrs. Marinelli, you're up to bat. In today's workshop, you stated, quote, I find it very offensive when a fellow board member says that I am erasing a human being. I am an educator, and I respect all kids. I don't care what they do. However, on April 30th, 2022, you campaigned at the Hollow where you stated, and I quote, I moved to Florida in 1980, and I became a school counselor at Southside Elementary for 20 years, and not any of this stuff, transgender, none of this stuff ever came up. In my 40 years, never did a kid come and talk to me about that. Which is it, Mrs. Marinelli? Which side of your mouth should we listen to? The transphobic side or the inclusive side? Should we believe the Robin Marinelli that sits at the dais and is on public record, or the Robin Marinelli who's campaigning on private property and doesn't know that the cameras are rolling? We're not attacking you, Mrs. Marinelli. We are holding you accountable. Don't confuse the two. If you and Mrs. Ziegler led with integrity, we wouldn't have to police your lies. You can blame Mr. Edwards until the cows come home, but the public has the receipts. We have the videos, we have the screenshots, and we will continue showing up here shining a light on your lies. I'm sorry if you don't like the speaker's tone, Mrs. Ziegler, but the public doesn't like the tone of your lies.
Thank you. Shannon Clement. Larry Wilson.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shannon Clement. I'm a parent of a student in this district, and for the first time in the whole entire time I've been coming, I don't have anything prepared. The reason for that, I'm not going to be spitting out any stats or witty one-liners from pop culture or anything of that nature that I tend to do. However, the reason for that is because leading into this meeting, I wasn't exactly sure what needed to be pinpointed. One of the things I did want to say is that last board meeting, Mrs. Rose actually ran that meeting. It ended up being a pretty productive, civil meeting. You were thrown a curveball, complete, total, utter curveball that I can understand not necessarily handling it the way I would have done so, but you handled it with professionalism. You made sure that we were all treated equally and civilly, and I thank you for that. I watched the workshop today, and again, we started off kind of rough a little bit there. Budget was kind of going kind of crazy. And the question I had going through my head is, why do we keep making more work for ourselves? Why do we, the whole thing with the budget this morning was that, we're having to go through all this, and now we have to put it on hold because we're trying to look for a superintendent and this, that, and the other. We didn't need to be here. We didn't need to be making all this work for ourselves, but yet here we are because we're looking for a superintendent. We're having to revise budgets. We're having to hold off revising budgets because we're looking for a superintendent. Do you see the roundabout that keeps happening with that? And then at the end of the meeting, and I'm going to be completely equal here, Mr. Edwards, I generally will agree with you 99% of the time. I would have gone about that a completely different way. Complete, total transparency there. We all make mistakes. That does happen. But the points he was making were still somewhat valid. And Mrs. Marinelli, I'm going to call you out just a little bit. And again, this is not an attack. You had said today that every single time parents come up to this podium, nobody is talking about student achievement. And I will again reiterate something I said a couple of board meetings ago. If a child is going hungry, they're not going to achieve. If a child's being bullied, they're not going to achieve. If a child is not in a safe space, they're not going to achieve. So my job as a parent is to stand up here and make sure that all of our children have safe spaces. And for a lot of LGBTQIA folks, school is the only safe space they have. So I will continue to stand up here and advocate for that. It's important, it's necessary, and as a counselor, regardless of what your own personal beliefs may be, I would imagine you can understand that particular aspect. So don't take me not standing up here and talking about reading, writing, arithmetic as not talking about student achievement. I am. I just might be coming at it from a different angle than you. Last but not least, something interesting I thought about today as well is the fact that, we're constantly up here having all these arguments, and a number of us for parents are constantly coming up here and we feel like we're banging our heads against a wall every single time we come up here. Because a majority every single time this meeting, I don't care who voted, it was only 30% of the population who was registered at the time. I don't care who voted, but every single meeting, a majority of us will stand up at this thing and say, hey, listen to us, please. You know what's funny? My son's in middle school. He has been with a bunch of different kids, and they don't care. They just want to learn.
Thank you.
We should learn something from them.
Larry Wilson and then Nick Machuca.
I have papers. To whom should I give them? The clerk? Okay, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Larry Wilson. I live in the district. I don't have any children. Currently, I'm too old. Well, I have some, but they're not here. I want to talk today about the consent agenda. Most people probably don't know what the consent agenda is. It's where you take a whole bunch of items that are on a big agenda. You all agree in some manner to put them together and vote on them as a block. Therefore, as is often done, there was a $10,000 payment to Florida Citizens Assembly, which was a group that was suing the school board, probably not this one, and we lost. And we paid them $10,000. I think that can be confirmed. But it was a minor item because it was on the consent agenda. We didn't even know what it was. And that lawsuit, I understand, was about the Florida Citizens Alliance saying that we had not been transparent in our activities, and so therefore we had violated the Sunshine Law or something. So that was mainly for lawyers' fees, I understand. So anyway, they have a list of 58 pornographic books found in counties throughout the state in secondary schools. I wanted to see how many of these titles are still in our media centers. So I did a little straw poll. I used the Follett Destiny database, which our schools all use. And I found that there are 13 of them still in our libraries in secondary schools. Now that doesn't mention the elementary and pre-K schools. Those students, I'm given to believe, have more objectionable materials in them than the secondary schools. Most of us probably think, oh, if they're in high school, they're probably already exposed to most of this stuff anyway. But I'm more concerned, and there's not a way for me to go into a library, to a private or to an elementary library and actually look at the books. I'd like to be able to do that, and I think that parents ought to be able to do that too. And finally, Stamped, the book by Kendi, was made available by the board's action about a month ago, only with parent permission. And then last meeting, 2 weeks ago, one of the board members, whose name I won't say, suggested, well, why don't we just be done with all of this and have everybody just sign a form in the registration materials saying, my son or daughter can read anything in the media center. That's really getting away from the heart of the matter. And then finally, I wanted to finish by reading from chapter 18 of St. Matthew, verse 2. And Jesus called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them and said, verily I say unto you,
Thank you.
you'll have to read it on your own.
Thank you very much. Nick Machuca, Mary Holmes.
Thank you. I'm here with Equality Florida again. Happy Pride Month to all who celebrate, which, by the way, is the majority of this room. I don't think I've said it up here before, but I'm a former educator myself. I loved it, and I taught at 2 different universities. But I got out of academia in part because I saw exactly where education was going many years before we all ended up here. So for the superintendent search, I'll again reiterate what our community hopes to see because it may not have been fully heard. Number 1, a master's degree in a branch of education science, although a doctorate is preferable. A minimum of 5 years of satisfactory teaching experience and 3 years of satisfactory administrative or supervisory experience in a diverse setting. Number 3, a commitment to a robust pre-K program as a means of ensuring academic success. Number 4, evidence of building the capacity of individuals to work together and strong verbal, written, and digital communication skills. Number 5, successful experience working within diverse settings where diverse cultures are valued and empowered. Exceptional fiscal and budget management skills, as well as school finance experience. Number 7, the ability to lead the district with a positive vision for public education while being strategic in how limited resources are used. Number 8, understanding of the difference between equal access and equitable access to resources and services. Number 9, demonstrated appreciation of the extensive arts program that has set Sarasota apart from nearly every other school district in the nation. And number 10, evidence of collaborative decision-making, a willingness to listen to other voices, successful team building, and examples of promoting shared responsibility. Most of all, we ask that this process be open and honest, and that the decision on the new superintendent be unanimous by this board. And since I have the time, I'll share that I read the entirety of Lawn Boy after our last meeting. If you'll recall, this was the book that a community member characterized as perverse and then was permitted to read a heavily edited passage without providing any context whatsoever. I'd like to share that this person chose to only read about, every other sentence and didn't care to provide any honest context, to nobody's surprise, I'm sure. One of the sentences that this person omitted, quote, "What difference does it make about somebody's lifestyle or whatever," end quote. Now, this book was not my cup of tea. I didn't really like it myself, but it seems like the issue here wasn't so much with that spliced up excerpt, but that the main character comes out as gay at the end. I taught literature for years, and I never would have let something that moronic happen in my own classroom. So don't let people launch dishonest attacks on books here either. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Mary Holmes, Jessica Thompson.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Holmes, and I'm a 34-year veteran ESE teacher. I'm here today to speak about students' rights in our public school system. In recent months, much has been written, discussed, manipulated, and exploited regarding the topic of parent rights. Student rights, however, are being taken away quickly and quietly, and I believe this is worthy of some discussion. Last week, I took the required training to update my certification as a youth mental health first aider. This legislation came about after the Parkland massacre, and it is enforced each year. A portion of the training dealt with basic psychological facts regarding adolescent sexuality. According to materials presented at the training, the age of 12 is the median age by which LGBTQ adults now realize that they had already recognized that something about them was different. The training stressed that children and teens may be, quote, scared or ashamed to discuss mental health challenges with their family for fear of rejection. As a certified youth mental health first aider, the role of the teacher is clearly delineated. I am to assess the student for a risk of suicide or self-harm and listen with a non-judgmental ear. Nowhere in the training is there any mention of notifying a parent or breaking a sacred confidence. In the best of all worlds, ideally every adolescent would have the kind of relationship with their parents so that in the event of a challenge or a crisis, he or she would feel comfortable confiding in them. But we all know that this kind of rapport and openness does not always exist in a family unit. And you would have to be living under a rock or in litigation with Mickey Mouse to not know the stats regarding bullying and suicide rates among this group. They are alarming, they are tragic, they are unacceptable, they are preventable. You cannot legislate trust. Again, my role as a teacher in this situation is very clear. Assess danger and listen to the kid with empathy. And that is precisely how I will respond if faced with a situation in which a child has confided in me regarding their sexuality or any other challenge. I will be the child-safe person. I will never break a student's confidence that they are sharing with me. Every child, every day. Children first. These are not just slogans or hashtags at the end of my professional signature. They are my commitment.
Thank you. Jessica Thomason, Julie Johns.
Hi, board members. I thought I would prepare something today, but I just, after watching the workshop, I really felt I needed to address something. What I wanted to come and talk about, hopefully, was the committee advisory board. I was interested to hear what everyone had to say about their picks, but I guess you guys didn't quite get to that in the workshop today. I think this board needs to hire a mediator really badly, because if I were one of the 4 candidates being considered and I was watching this today, I would withdraw my application. And I know that the person that I liked on the list, I did look, and he did withdraw his application. So that's, maybe that's why he didn't make it to the top 6. I don't know. But there is no one that is going to come into a boardroom that's not working together at all and be able to achieve anything. No matter what it is you're hoping for them to do, it cannot happen when you guys are this divided. And I'm really asking you to please consider that. And also, I know this will probably be a long meeting, but I hope you do, I know it's like number 48 on the agenda, but I hope that you will spend a few minutes discussing your picks. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I will say the list was a little surprising, not because there were people of different political affiliations than me, but because I just hope that there are teachers or people with educational background represented, parents of public education kids, and just people that don't just have a political career to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Julie Johns, and that would be it.
Hi, I'm Julie Johns. As old as I am, I've never spoken to a school board, so thank you for this opportunity. I don't envy your position, but let me tell you a little something about myself. So I think there's a tendency to not look at the big picture of what's going on and how the rest of the United States is looking at this particular issue. And people are astounded by what's going on in the educational system in Florida. I am a granddaughter of an immigrant, as I'm sure probably everybody in this room is. I am the mother of three grown children, and one of them was gay, bullied, and suicidal. I am the grandmother of 9 children who have known nothing in their in their schools other than shooter drills. I had one granddaughter at Columbine. I'm also a former educator. My mother taught in a one-room schoolroom, believe it or not. My brother was an English teacher in high school. I was in the corporate education and training world, and I was also an adjunct teacher at the community college. When I moved to Florida, I looked at becoming a substitute teacher. No way. Number one, the pay. Number two, there is no way I would want to teach under the restrictions that have been placed on teachers in this particular administration that's prevalent right now. Those restrictions, I think, are really underestimating the talent that you have in this community. You have teachers who want to teach, and students are more than eager to learn. They're curious. That's why they're in school. That's why we're here to teach them. In looking at the list of candidates for superintendent, I'm sorry to say, I know it's been hard work, but I'm not impressed. I mean, they seem underqualified, and I don't know if this is your final list or not. I find one of them just strictly appalling, because I believe in separation of church and state. And I hope you do too.
Thank you.
Is that my end? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will continue to watch. Thank
Yes,
you very much for
absolutely.
your time.
That concludes the hearing of citizens, and that moves us on to any corrections or additions to the consent agenda.
All right, thank you. Yes, we have quite a few. So revisions to the...
I'm sorry, Dr. Foster, 1 second. Mr. Edwards. Sorry.
Thank you. I have 2 comments to make regarding public comments I heard. Number 1, yes, school board members make mistakes, and for those of you that were mentioned the timing was poor, and I will grant you that. However, I need to say that for weeks, I knew that I was not told the truth, and I kept that to myself until the last public comments when that came to light. And the timing of wanting to make those comments I would have made at a completely different time. But we moved into an area of equity, and we moved into an area of anti-discrimination, and I felt it was important to say that what I had achieved in terms of policy difference I can live with, We can differ on policy, but once you break my trust, it's really hard for me to absorb that kind of authoritative recommendation of how we were going to proceed in both of those policies. The second thing I would suggest in terms of continuous improvement is that if there is a suggestion about how policy should look, bring it. Let us read it, because I don't have Title IX memorized in my head, sorry. If there are real edits that you want to make, bring it, so I have a chance to read it and absorb it. But the timing was bad, so I own that. Secondly, what I want to talk about is the superintendent selection from this board member's seat. As far as I'm concerned, a lot of the comments that I've received and heard and phone calls that I've gotten is that we're probably on the same page for who's the best of the four. But what I will tell you, and I will see, I'm going to talk to all of them equally. What I will tell you is I'm not yet convinced that anyone in that group is the best for Sarasota. And so that was why I got elected, was to use my judgment that if none of those four meet my personal criteria, you all will be the first to know about that. Until then, it's an open ball game. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually was moving along, but I do want to make a couple comments. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I do, I want to highlight, because this was asked a couple times, and we've had volunteer advisory committees for a couple different things. They're volunteer positions. Each board member, for this case, reached out to 3 individuals that they wanted to appoint to this committee. I can only speak to my appointments, and I know the 3 to be very knowledgeable, have very different perspectives, and will bring value that I respect and value to the process. I know many of the names, some I do not, on the list, but I think it's really, I want to pause everyone. I think we all can take moments of frustration and perhaps have preconceived notions about people that you've never met, but I would just ask that everyone be respectful of these individuals. They're volunteers, they're members of all of our community, and I think that there were some comments that were made that were that could be perceived as disparaging or generalizing, and I don't believe them to be accurate. So I want to thank all of the members for their willingness to participate in this process, and for any member of the community that is not on there, we, as mentioned, we welcome your feedback and appreciate the comments that were made today. And the last thing is, just to Mr. Edwards, I know you mentioned on the policy piece, I would tell you that for anything like that, in my personal perspective, was to bring this forward before we had any attorney working on anything, since that needs to be kind of a group discussion as before we move forward. I know lots of it was legally or legislatively changed, but there was going to be some additional commentary, I thought, before. That's why I sought feedback before asking for any kind of legal changes to it and then review it. So now, moving on to the next item, additions and corrections to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have quite a few. So added to the agenda, we have item number 5 was a report and addendum to the instructional classified personnel report. Item number 52, the approval of the new job description for the elementary school literacy coach. Item number 53, request to hold a litigation strategy session on June 20th. Item number 55, superintendent search to extend the deadline for finalists' applications. Item number 56, superintendent search, approve expenses related to finalists' travel. Item number 57, superintendent search, approval of finalist list. Items moved to new business. Item number 7, approval of the renewal purchase of Dreambox supplemental online math resource for 2023-2024. Item number 9, the approval of the purchase of Admentum courseware for 2023-2024. Removed from the agenda, we have item number 50, approval of the new job description for the Executive Director of Leadership Development, and item number 51, approval of the new job description, Executive Director of Professional Learning. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I may move to item number 8, this kind of compiles into the 3 areas where there are some questions. I think that's Achieve 3000. If we can move that just to new business, I know that we're going to have a conversation with that before. So it would be, Kathy, it would be 7, 8, and 9. If there are no additional questions, additions or corrections, I will, is there a motion?
I move for approval of the consent agenda as amended.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Seeing none, board members, please refresh your screen if you don't have a vote sign on in front of you, and please vote. If not, we can do a voice vote. All right. So just keep us moving along. Oh, you guys are on workshop.
I'm changing it. Special work session.
Up, 6th. They're so ahead, we have our extra board meeting loaded already. Nope. Okay. We're just going to do a voice vote, and then those who have it, we can register it. So we'll start with Mrs. Marinelli.
Yes.
Mrs. Rose.
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards? And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve the consent agenda as amended passes unanimously. And we'll just give it a second. We have a lot on new business, my goodness. All right, everyone ready?
No.
I'm going to have to move here.
No.
Item number 46. I'm going to have to get my numbers here.
I thought
Hold
we
on.
were 7, 8, and 9.
They're all renumbered. So I have, Kathy, did you move 7, 8, 9? 7, 8, and 9. Okay, that's fine. So they're 7, 8. Okay. Bear with me, because the numbers are going to be a little bit out of whack.
Should we start with 8?
7, 8, and 9 were pulled to new business. But, well, what, Dr. Foster, as we do that, I know that there were, so 7, 8, and 9 were moved to new business, which they'll be renumbered. However, I know that you had a member of staff that was going to come up and speak. I'll share that. Again, I don't know the details on all this, but one of the conversations, and I was actually planning on having this conversation during the workshop, during member comments, but there has been an ongoing discussion with certainly members in the community. Sure, seen it across a number of different articles or education articles. I've had conversations with the superintendent, and that's been kind of an ongoing aspect, but about concerns about how mental health and then social emotional learning has kind of been co-opted into some areas of concern, and it's been a web of complicated analysis, if you will. But what I have brought forward, at least to my conversations with the superintendent, and I know that this has been discussed among staff through the superintendent, but I've raised concerns, and members of the public have, with CASEL. If you remember, if you go back historically, their whole discussion with Character Strong, and there was no relation with CASEL, and go on and on and on, and fast forward that CASEL is a huge education company that continues to seemingly be acquiring more and more platforms and programs that we are already in the process of utilization. Is that correct? I, prior to even today, had planned on raising a concern with the board, and then, because I have had conversations with administration, but the ultimate concern is that the use of the data that is collected through these platforms is a concern. And it's hard to navigate, and it's hard to even eliminate. I think that's the hardest part of trying. I think that prior administration tried to make adjustments with staff to remove any data collection, but there are components of it that it's a requirement for its accreditation, as if I understand correctly, so or certification. So it makes it next to impossible to ever really put the proper protocols or structures in place to remove them. Again, I'm not proclaiming to be an expert on this, but there's certainly been enough evidence to raise concern to me. And so what I was proposing was to consider and see where my other board members were going to, because I'm not going to put a resolution in front of anyone unless this is something everyone supports or we have support for, but to have a resolution where we will not do business with any vendor that is part of Castle. However, so that's a starting point. I want to say, however, that's not going to happen today because that wasn't discussed, but it is something I would like to propose, and largely not just to also help our staff, because it makes their lives very challenging as going forward and then having to reevaluate what other platforms or programs will be allowable. I will say some things have been amended at this date that are trickling down that will impact this as well. So we may be a couple of steps ahead. But with that being said, I know that in addition to that, it puts us in a precarious situation because items that have been pulled, 7, 8, 9, I believe, all are large, well-known education platforms that we have used previously and that have recently, and again, I'm going to hand it over to you before that I believe have been either acquired or are part or now under the Castle umbrella, which is a concern, but I wanted to give us the opportunity to highlight some of these issues.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing would potentially be to go one by one, just to kind of explain each one. And Ms. Kokoza, if you would like to come up. So the first one that was initially pulled, which I think was number 9 on the agenda, was Edmentum. And so this is a organization that purchased Apex, but I'm going to let Ms. Kokoza and Mr. Cantis explain a little bit more behind this particular program.
Thank you for the last minute preparedness. I appreciate it.
No problem. We are confident that Edmentum is not attached to Castle. There was some conversation, or Edmentum at one point had a partnership with a program called BASE, but that partnership was severed in 2022. And at this point, we've confirmed with Edmentum that is not an active partnership and it is not in the Edmentum program. We are confident of that. We've gone through it with them time and time again. We've looked through the curriculum. We don't see evidence of SEL. They also don't have CRT in that content. We even reached out to them because we looked through old blog postings and news releases and things of that nature, and they have scrubbed their website of anything that is not current. Most of the things that were there were from 2020, 2021. So that's kind of the status of where we are with Edmentum.
Can you share the purpose of the program and what it serves to our students?
Yep. So Edmentum is currently our program in place for our credit recovery. So students who are in our dropout prevention program have access to what is called modified curriculum, and that is per state statute, and Edmentum is our provider. It is also an online provider that is approved by the Department of Education up through 2024-25 school year.
And do you want to talk about the alternatives, because you had looked into any alternatives that could potentially meet this?
We even had some of our teachers this year, as we knew our renewal was coming up. We took a look at Edgenuity, which is another online provider that is approved by the DOE to provide online coursework. Our teachers felt like when they took a look at the new Edmentum courseware, which is formerly known as Apex, there was a familiarity with it. The students have been successful in completing their coursework, and the quality of instruction they felt was there. So we're continuing on with Edmentum, and as we explained at the board workshop, I guess that was 2 weeks ago. One of the reasons why we do ask for a multi-year contract with a program like Edmentum is because the students often carry over across school years. So it's important to have that consistency so that the students aren't kind of stuck halfway through one course and beginning another course.
So, just to follow up with this particular one, I think it's difficult because there aren't a lot of options out there. So, and we want to make sure that we have this option for our students, that if a student does need course recovery, that we have a program and an opportunity for our students to engage in that type of program to be able to do makeup of a course. And so this, I believe, used to be Apex, which we've used for a long time, and Apex then was purchased by this program. And so, I mean, and I know we've had some conversations regarding it. I think with the resources, the limited resources that are out there, it becomes complicated when you're dealing with really, really big organizations that are purchasing lots of opportunities for us to engage in curriculum resources. So the limited opportunities that we have, this is the recommendation of the curriculum team.
Thank you so much. And was that the same case with the Dream Box and
Miss Ellington is here for that one.
And I was going to do it all once.
Now we're out of order.
And just to be clear, just for members, I was going to cover those 3 items because the way this is numbered is a little bit out of sync. So instead
Do you want Miss Ellington to go ahead and come talk about Dream Box before we vote on it?
Achieve 3000 was the other one.
I can talk about Achieve 3000 briefly. So to the best of our knowledge, we don't know that there's a partnership there. We've looked on their website. We have not gotten in contact with their representatives yet, but Achieve 3000 is owned by McGraw-Hill. So they were acquired, I guess, maybe 2 years ago they've been with McGraw-Hill. So at this point, when we look, we don't see any evidence of Castle or SEL on their website in any way. So we can continue to investigate that, but we are not aware of it, and we did do our due diligence to ensure it wasn't there.
So just for the public, do you want to share Achieve 3000 and what we use it for?
So Achieve 3000 is used in our 9th through 12th grade intensive language arts classes. It is the curriculum resource that helps us progress monitor our students. So a student reads 2 articles and completes activities a week, and after they do that 4 to 8 times over the course of a month, it monitors their comprehension growth over time. It is the resource that was approved in the K-12 reading plan. So that is something that we kind of work through as, even though it's an intervention because they're in intensive reading, it is kind of the core instruction that we use at high school.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
And we'll have, as Dr. Johnson and Miss Ellington are coming up, I think too, as we go through, as you vote on each individual one, if we need to bring additional information back at a different time, we can do that as well.
So we're still on, right? Okay, so Dreambox, you may remember, is an online supplemental math resource program. We did use it all of last year. The year prior, one of our schools piloted it, and then we purchased it for last year. So we came back with the proposal again this year. There isn't any CRT or SEL curriculum in there. It's aligned to best math standards, and it's very responsive to students and provides, there's a K-8 curriculum in there, so even students who are going a little bit farther ahead can. It's very adaptive to their work.
Do you guys have are there any questions? Nope. Mr. Edwards?
I don't have any question about 7, 8, or 9. But while you're there, or somebody's here, I guess, have any of these programs, because one of the things that we talk about, which I'm in agreement, is that we need to be in compliance. So are any of these programs that are up for discussion disapproved by the DOE? No. Okay. What about Castle?
Yes.
We're not.
I can't speak to that.
Yeah. As far as Castle with DOE, I'm not sure. I don't know if Deb knows that or whatever.
Because these are, from my perspective, these are the kinds of conversations that at least I and many of the members of the public perceive as, for lack of a better word, political conversations. Social emotional learning is mandated by the state, and when it comes to, and I'm not an educator, and I know I get reminded often, fellow board members are, however, we don't run the school district, our educators do, and we have to rely on your expertise. And when you're making recommendations, whether it's PLC training or social emotional learning or whatever, I need to rely on that, and I need to rely on the fact that we're compliant, because the last thing I want is to be accused of noncompliance. So I hope that clears up, at least from my perspective, where we're going with these conversations.
Thank you. And just to clarify, thank you. And I know, because it's a moving target, and I think even that's what makes it so challenging for all of us. And I certainly don't think anyone's trying to make it political. I am not trying to make it political. I'm trying to keep us out of a situation where we're like pulling back halfway through. And I think that we found ourselves there. There have been things that have been brought to our attention, that does not include anyone here, but that we, couldn't find anything or what have you, and that you can only do what you can do as far as doing the best due diligence possible that's available. And then lo and behold, a couple months later, it turned out to be true. I wish I had a better answer. I think what the most telling piece was in this conversation, so when Dr. Foster and I talked about this, was we have to say this publicly, because we're really in between, we're in a corner, because there aren't they're being gobbled up and acquired so quickly at the same time, and there's not many different options. And so, for any other developer out there, like, maybe there's a great market opportunity for you, because it's really becoming a challenge. And to what Mr. Edwards said, I would agree. I mean, I don't pretend to be an expert in selecting these things. I do believe everyone's going forward in good faith. I don't want that to be misconstrued in any way, shape, or form. But I know that I have found things that I thought, no big deal, and then sure enough, what was being shared with me for months was sure enough to be true and concerning. And it really, again, if everyone's asked what it is, it's not CRT and all these, it's a data capturing program. I mean, and that's it makes it very difficult as a district to reassure, because we are doing as much as we possibly can, but there are a lot of back end components to it that I don't know enough about, but that surely do end up sharing data in a manner that I don't think is transparent, not because we're not being transparent, but because the vendors we're doing work with are, and that's outside of our realm of expertise. So to clarify some elements. Mrs. Marinelli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank everybody for really digging into this, because I know how much time it takes. And it really is, the legislation is changing quickly, it seems like daily, and for us to keep up with it. But when you tell me, all of you, that you tell me that you've investigated this, but the thing that really stands out for me, if DOE has approved it, and if they've approved it, then I'm good with that. Because I wish it wouldn't even get down to you guys. I wish it would already be vetted, dug through all the way at DOE. So you and us as a school district would not be put in this kind of situation. But I appreciate all the time that you spend. And I'm glad you did your due diligence and you found out, because sometimes with all of this, there'll be one little statement that might be aligned, but it has nothing to do with what is going on in the school and affecting our kids. So I really appreciate it. And when you tell me as a board member that the Department of Education for the state of Florida has approved it, I'm good. Because that's where the responsibility is going to lie. So thank you.
Quick question, just one more thing. Because there have been times, I wish everything's are in sync, but that's not always the case. And it's not, again, not because anyone's intentionally trying to do anything bad, but sometimes we're closer to the ground than DOE. What is our time frame, just because I don't want to, what's our time frame for approving this? Do we have 2 more weeks available to us? If not, that's fine. I just want to be thoughtful.
For Dreambox in particular, the invoice, the proposal, the quote we got was, it will change after June 30th. So
okay.
No, I'm not looking at the calendar right now, but that would bring another quote.
No, thank you. No, I appreciate, that's exactly what the information I need to know. And Mrs. Kokoza.
For Achieve 3000, we do have a little more time, because it would be for the start of the next school year. For Edmentum, it is likely that we need to do it sooner than later because of when our contract period is. We were delayed in bringing it to you because we workshopped it at the last meeting, so that postponed my ability to give you the quote, but our contract with them is up June 30th.
So if we had this on the 20th,
We would prefer not to because we have students in summer school using the program, and that could cause problems on that end.
Okay.
We would really want to know what it is we need to look for.
Fair
if
point.
we were going to delay.
Right now.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to, does everyone on their computer have 46 as their next item of new business? I just want to make sure everyone's working off the same thing because it gets a little discombobulated. Okay, and that is approval of the 2023-24 Memorandum of Understanding? Okay, we're going to go down from that number down just to keep it cohesive. Do you have, go up here. Bear with us, apologies. And down 1, up 2, there, nope. I'm going to help you. Paper, right here.
So we're not going by the paper?
Well, it kind of tweaks it a little bit. Oh, that's from the consent agenda. There you go. You can vote yes. You already voted yes. All right, so item number 46, is there a motion for approval of the 2023-24 Memorandum of Understanding for Systems Programmer? Is there a motion? I want to make sure everyone's together here.
I move for approval of the 23-24 Memorandum of Understanding for Systems Programmer between the Patterson Foundation of Sarasota County and the School Board of Sarasota County, Florida.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any comments? Seeing none, we'll see if we'll be doing voice votes for the rest of the night or if we're going to do, if we can vote electronically. I'm waiting for it to come up. Nope. Okay. I'm going to then just do voice votes so we can move forward. We have a lot of items on new business. So, Mr. Edwards, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve the 23-2024 Memorandum of Understanding for Systems Programmer between the Patterson Foundation of Sarasota County and the School Board of Sarasota County, Florida, passes unanimously. Moving to item number 47, request to hold a private meeting concerning settlement negotiations.
I move for approval to request to hold private meeting concerning settlement negotiations and/or strategy sessions related to the litigation expenditures for Kimberly Fox versus Sarasota County School Board, case numbers 17-018538 EBG, 20-002710 EBG, 20-010729 EBG, 22-003535 pursuant to Florida Statute 286.0118 on June 20th, 2023.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I see Council Duggan is on deck. Mr. Duggan, you're recognized.
Yeah, this is an ongoing workers' comp case. I just want to let you all know I am not personally handling it, but it is being handled. I'm overseeing it. So if you do approve this request for the litigation strategy session, I will bring the lawyer who's handling it, who will be able to fill you in on the issues. They asked me to have this set, so I'm just the middleman here between them and you on this.
Thank you very much. I have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. I'm going to start with Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Enos.
Yes.
Mrs. Rose.
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli.
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve the request to hold a private meeting regarding settlement negotiations and passes unanimously. Moving on to number 48. This is the approval of the Superintendent Search Citizen Advisory Committee list. Is there a motion?
I move for approval of the Superintendent Search Citizen Advisory Committee list.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Mr. Edwards.
I believe the public was interested in knowing who we selected and why.
Certainly. Well, there is well, I know I mentioned already, and I don't want to, it's up to each individual board member to feel compelled to comment or not, but I know I had already shared my comments. But just for the members of the public, the Superintendent Search Citizen Advisory Committee list was attached I'm going to confirm, because I know I've said this in the past, but was really intended for it to be attached. This has been attached? Okay. That was attached in advance and is available, that each elected school board member brought 3 names forward to participate in the advisory committee, which will take place on the 12th, all right? Next Monday? Yes, next Monday. Are there any other additional comments? Mr. Edwards, did you want to?
Sure, I'm happy to tell you who I picked and why. I picked Kelly Kirshner. He's the chairman of the board of Unidos Now, which is a very well-known Hispanic youth organization here in Sarasota County and Manatee. And also, as Hispanic students represent about 23% of our population here in Sarasota, so I felt that Kelly's input, at least for me, and would be valuable. Second, I picked Medalia Glover. She has her 3rd student in Booker High, and the 2 previous students went to Montessori and then into SSAS, Sarasota School of Arts and Sciences. So she's utilized our choice, and she currently is employed at the Betty J. Johnson Library, and she was recently involved in the Freedom School. My last pick was Elvira Kulowick. She is a partner in a same-sex relationship, and they have a daughter that attends public schools. So I felt that representation mattered, and I looked for parents and folks that would advise me for a superintendent search.
Thank you very much. Are there any more comments? Mr. Enos.
Yes, I, representing South County and being a long-standing North County resident, as I know from being on many committees that South County also often gets underrepresented. So I made sure that I picked 3 people from District 5, which is south of Venice Avenue. And so the 3 people I looked at is to be parents, know what good leadership and successful leadership is, as well as make sure that they lived in the district. So I picked Sheriff Hoffman, who is a father, lifelong resident, lives in South County, is from South County, knows good leadership, school safety background, 100% is for our kids. I also picked the chair of the Sarasota County Commission, Ron Cutzinger, who is also a lifelong Sarasota County, South County resident, who also, again, as being the chair of the Sarasota County Commission, he is knows what leadership looks like. He's an individual businessman. He's a strong advocate for students and our teachers and our school system, and I selected him, as he's also a District 5 member. And I also selected Deputy Chief Chris Morales from the Northport Police Department. His wife is a counselor in the schools. They have children in our schools. He grew up in Northport, graduated from Venice High, went through Sarasota County Public Education System. Like I said, again, lifelong resident. He was also interim chief of police for a while. Again, strong leadership, commitment to South County, commitment to this community, commitment for kids. And I believe that he also would be able to help in selection in this community because of all 3 of them, based upon their leadership skills, to be able to help to select the next superintendent.
Thank you. Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I chose Mrs. Katrina Ward. She is a former, started her career in Sarasota County. She was an aide. She was a special education teacher. She was a counselor at Riverview, and she was a district-level administrator, and she is retired. She had 2 children that went through the Sarasota County school system. Her husband is a retired coach from Riverview, so I thought that she would have a very good perspective of the Sarasota County School District. My second one was Sebastian Grizel, who is a student at Riverview, who comes and speaks before this board, so I thought it was important that we had a student representative. And my last one is Keith Mercier. His children graduated from Sarasota County Schools. His brother, I was his school counselor at Southside Elementary, and he is a businessman, owns his own business, so he has a vested interest in this district. And I wanted to have a good representation for the Superintendent Search Committee. Thank you.
Did you?
Sure, happy to go. My
all three of the choices that I selected for the committee are parents currently have children in our school system, and that's Dr. Gary Kapothrakis, Valerie Kammermeyer, and Paul Caragiulo.
And mine are Jennifer Cottrell and Teresa DeWitt and Eric Robinson. Sorry, Eric. And, you know, I think the reason they picked them is both either Jennifer and Teresa, both I know have had children in our school district, care deeply about our school district, and come from things from a different perspective that I believe are areas of opportunity for our school district that can really make us thrive and move to the next level, which I am very focused on, and hopefully our next superintendent can do the same. And Eric Robinson, having been a former school board member, I think provides me a valuable insight and perspective also when it comes to picking the next superintendent. So I appreciate all the volunteers for in making themselves available for this important process that we have coming up next week. And I don't think we voted yet, so let's do a voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose? Mrs.
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve the school board superintendent search citizens advisory committee list has been unanimously approved as presented. Moving on to item number 50 is a job description. Oh, sorry, just kidding, 49. See, thank you, everyone. Item number 49 is the bell change times. Before everyone panics, do we need Mr. Dumas to come up and, do we need to address this?
And I know as he's walking up, I know this is something that he discussed at a recent workshop, and it's returning some schools back to their start time now that we have enough bus drivers. So I'll let him share the good news.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Foster. So if you remember last year, one of the conversations, well, many conversations we had in front of the board was regarding transportation. And one of the things the board elected to do at the recommendation of our transportation department is, I would say, tweak some bell times, about 15 minutes here and there across the district at select schools to be able to get those buses turned around back to those kids so we can get them out of there on time and try to hit some schedules at least part of the year. We struggled all year long with bus drivers. This year, I think we're going to be in much better shape. Thank you to the board for taking some bold steps with raising our rate per hour for bus drivers and bus attendants. So we're looking to start off the year in really, really good shape. I think we'll be full staffed, which we have not been in a number of years. So that is absolutely amazing. If you remember when we had the conversation about bell times, we promised that if we could come back at some point and get back to original bell times, we would. Charlotte Price, our acting director, called every one of the principals involved in the bell time changes from last year and asked them, did they prefer their new times, want to go back to the old times? The ones presented to you today are the principals and the staffs that said, no, we prefer our old bell times. Those are the changes you're making today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Okay, is there a motion? Did we already do that? No. Okay, my goodness. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Is there a motion?
I move for approval of the bell time changes at 7 schools for the 2023-2024 school year.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the bell time changes at 7 schools for the 23-24 school year. Are there any additional comments? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve the bell times for the 7 schools for 23-24 school year passes unanimously. Moving to item number 50, is there a motion?
52.
Sorry, thank you. So I'm on item removed, nope, item 52, approval of the new job description.
I move for approval of the new job description for elementary school literacy coach.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, are there any additional comments? Seeing none, members please vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye to approve the new job description for elementary school literacy coaches passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 53, request to hold private meeting concerning settlement negotiations. Is there a motion?
I move to request to hold private meeting concerning settlement negotiations and/or strategy sessions related to litigation expenditures for Lisa Thompson versus Sarasota County School Board case numbers as cited pursuant to Florida statute.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Mr. Duggan? You're recognized.
Yeah, just, again, this is the second request for a private meeting to discuss one of our lawsuits. While I do handle some of our lawsuits, this is also one I am not handling, so I will make sure I coordinate with the lawyer who is handling this one and make sure that they are present at that time on the 20th to address you on it.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments? Seeing none, we'll take a voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve the request to hold a private meeting concerning settlement negotiation passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 55. Oh,
54?
54.
well, this is where it's all, okay, 54, excuse me. This was originally item number 9. This is to approve the purchase of Edmonton courseware for the 23-24 school year. Is there a motion?
I make a motion for the approval of the purchase of Edmonton courseware for the 23-24 school year by the School Board of Sarasota County, Florida.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? I'll just quickly say, I want to thank you to staff. It's a really perplexing time, and I appreciate Dr. Foster, you responding as well. I will, I'm not going to support this, and this is not a reflection of our staff. I think I cannot stress how frustrating this time is when it comes to trying to make these decisions. But with that, as I asked about the timing, so I appreciate, I don't want to put us in a bad spot, but I will be following up with DOE as well, and bring that back for what it's worth, because I have no doubt in my mind that our team did a full set of due diligence, and I appreciate for that. I wish you guys didn't have to, because it is not a second guessing of your expertise by any stretch of the imagination. I hope you believe me when I say that, because I genuinely believe that. And I just want to, having learned from some other previous moments, and then trying to just clarify, and just because this became aware to us kind of last minute, because I think these things are happening somewhat fast and furiously, and in the event there's something that we find out, I know that it is not on anyone's shoulders in here, because I know that the due diligence was properly done. Mrs. Marinelli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to support it, but with caution, because I do think that because the way companies get bought up and things get put in that we don't know that get put in, even though staff does their due diligence. And so with that being said, if we find out that it for some reason has any of that, then we're going to have to adjust. The reason I'm going to support it is we got kids, students going into school, starting summer school, and their academic advancement's going to rely on this. So I don't feel like I could in good conscience say no, but I'm doing it with caution, and if we do find out there's anything, then we'll bring it back up and we'll regroup and figure out how we're going to deal with it. But that is why I'm going to go ahead and approve it. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Enos?
Yeah, I actually, when we were here, I looked it up, and it is on the approved list from the Florida Department of Education currently, and since it's on the Florida Department of Education, I know that they would do their due diligence, and that I would hope that they would have done their support, and again, as Ms. Marinelli said, kids are using it right now. Our staff, as Ms. Carcosa said, needs to get it approved, so we need to be able to move forward, but I agree, if there's anything that does come up, for whichever reason, obviously, we can readdress that heading into the fall.
Perfect. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, I will do a voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes no, and the motion to approve the purchase of Edmonton courseware for 23-24 school year passes 4-1. Moving on to, am I going to get this right? Item number 55. The superintendent search. Oh, let me see here. Am I right? Extend the deadline for the finalists. Mr. Duggan, I don't know if you want to comment on this. This is more of a clear.
Yeah, so you all.
Mike.
So the superintendent search process is obviously up to you. You are the ones who set the deadlines. You are the one who drive the ship. You did set a deadline on it originally. From conversations with the search firm, there was an applicant they worked with all along who got the lion's share of the application in. There were some apparently technical glitches according to the search firm that made the last part of the application get in like an hour after the deadline expired. So it was technically after the deadline. I think it's within your power to extend the deadline with the intent to approve the application as timely. So that's what this would be about, I would deem it as a motion to extend the deadline with the intent to accept all applications as timely.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move for the superintendent search to extend deadline for finalist applications.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. Mr. Edwards? Yes. Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve the extension of the deadline for the finalist applications and the superintendent search passes unanimously. To note that is closed now. That was just moving on to number 56 is the superintendent search approve expenses related to finalist travel. Is there a motion?
I move to approve expenses related to finalist travel in the superintendent search.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Duggan, you're recognized.
I don't have much to add other than I thought you were looking for me to explain again.
Okay.
So
Nope.
I think
was
it's self-explanatory.
I believe this came up as because this wasn't contemplated per se in the budget, but because it's out of the board's expenses, and based on the short list that we would be expending or approving any kind of reimbursement for travel expenses. So if there are no additional comments, we'll do a voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve expenses related to the superintendent search finalist travel passes unanimously. Moving to item number 57, am I right? Yeah.
I move for approval of the finalist list for the superintendent search.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? I'm just going to say I want to thank all of the applicants who applied. I want to thank McPherson and Jacobs for the search firm. I think they've done a really thoughtful job, and I appreciate that. I know it was noted many times. I think it's not unique to Sarasota, but there are more superintendent searches going on right now, not only in Florida, but across the country more than ever before. And so, yes, the candidate pool is different. But I'm actually very excited. I'm excited about our search, our finalists, all of them. I'm excited about the opportunities for Sarasota. So I look forward to the next phase, and I want to thank everyone for participating and really being flexible with the schedule as we move forward and taking this as a priority. So, seeing no additional comments, I'll do a voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve the final list for the superintendent search is adopted unanimously. Moving on to item number 55.
55?
No. 58.
58.
Oh, that was purely me. I just didn't read it correctly. So, approve to the Tuesday, June 20th work session be moved to June 21st. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the Tuesday, June 20, 2023 work session be moved to Wednesday, June 21, 2023.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
If I may, before there's a second, we just approved 2 litigation strategy sessions, particularly for the 20th. So before you all make your motion and we have to amend, I want to just ask that you make a motion at this point to approve the change of the work session from June 20th to June 20th to June 21st, as well as moving the 2 litigation strategy sessions that we just set for the 20th to the 21st as well. Typically, we set those after the workshops, as you know, while you all are here, and I just wasn't thinking about it earlier today. So before we got into the whole motion to amend and all of that, I wanted to interrupt, so my apologies.
So moved.
Do you want me to restate it for the?
No, I think it's fine, but the record has it. So is there a second? Technically, I'd pull it back, but that's fine.
Second.
So there is a motion to approve the June 20th, 2023 work session be moved to the June 21st, 2023 date to include the 2 litigation strategy sessions to the 21st.
Thank you.
Okay. They have 2, Mr. Duggan, Dr. Foster, you're also on here.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. So I had sent an email last night to potentially shorten it just to 2 items. So we have 2 items that unfortunately I think would not be able to happen on the 21st. One is the career and technical education one that has been postponed, that the people that would need to present on that day are not available on the 21st. And the other one is the charter school application. The company that is coming, they have already made travel arrangements. We would have to touch base with them to change. So the proposal was to potentially just do 2, so you don't have a marathon day on the 20th and just do those 2 items with the litigation. I don't know if that is a possibility with that, but
I personally don't have any issue. I don't know that we have to vote on actually, I don't believe we have to vote on the changes to workshops. It's just, I mean, it's good practice. We can give everyone a heads up. But the board meetings are the ones that are formally adopted at the beginning of the year from a calendar standpoint. The workshops are just added and posted. But I personally don't have any issue if we just have to allocate the right time and make sure board members have the appropriate time accommodated. And certainly, I think we all want to work around what staff's availability is. So if it's a 6 o'clock meeting, the workshop being 2 items, give or take.
with the litigation, I mean, we could start in the afternoon, so it's not an all day. I'm not sure how long the litigation would need to be on that date.
Well, the motion is to move the litigation to the 21st anyway, so we're only talking about those two items, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay, so well, let's close out
In
this.
the litigation, they're like 30 minutes each.
Well, let's close out this motion, and then I think that, just to make a note, that we will be having an hour and a half long beginning workshop, if that works for everyone's timing, from a 5 o'clock or 4:30 start time, to add those items. Is that, okay. So I'm going to do a voice vote, and just to remind, we are approving Tuesday, June 20th work session be moved to the 21st, with the exception of the 2 items that we just discussed, in addition to the litigation strategy sessions being moved to June 21st after the work session. There's a motion and a second, and I will take a voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
I'm just clarifying that we are moving the workshop
Yes.
to the 21st?
Yes.
I thought that the staff wasn't available.
There's 1 item that 2 items beforehand.
Okay.
It sounds like that the thought is to have 2, one with just the 2 items prior to the meeting on the 20th, and then whatever we decide to put on the 21st agenda. Is that?
That was what was said, and as mentioned, yes. So if that doesn't work, here, let me just explain. So we have a motion open on the table. We can either pull it back and clarify, or we can amend it. But just to note that at the beginning of the year, usually if we change any dates for meetings, it's board meetings, because those are adopted with the reorg and all of that. Work sessions, unless I'm incorrect, I don't believe we usually vote on them. They're scheduled accordingly and posted, but this is here, so we have to close it out, but I don't think there's anything preventing us from adding a short workshop, as long as it's advertised correctly, and board members are available on the 20th to accommodate the change with staff.
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
No worries. And Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye to approve Tuesday, June 20th's partial workshop be moved to Wednesday, June 21st, in addition to the 2 litigation strategy sessions to the 21st. Passes unanimously. I had moved item number 7 and 8 to new business, so if board members have your pages open, that was the renewal of Dreambox, that has already been addressed, and the approval to purchase Achieve 3000, so I just need motions on those. So that's item number, what was originally 7? It wasn't. Oh, she's got it now. Number 59. It wasn't there just a minute ago. She just put it up there.
I think it's just 8 that we're missing. Is that correct, Mrs.
We're just missing.
Just 8? That's my understanding.
7. Yep, 59. Sorry. It wasn't there a couple seconds ago. I'm just saying. All right. So now currently titled number 8, originally item number 7. Is there a motion to approve the renewal purchase of Dreambox?
I move for approval of the renewal purchase of Dreambox supplemental online math resource for the 2023-2024 school year.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Everyone on, okay. I'm just going to reiterate, not to be redundant, I hope all the statements I said before and the other, I just want to clarify some things, and certainly if I find out if I'm able to peel back some more information or verify, then even better. And again, I want to thank staff for responding quickly as we try to chase what I call like an ink blob on a paper towel, which keeps expanding. So, Mrs. Marinelli.
And what I said previously about the other one is the same thing. I will support this, but if we do find out that there's something there, then we'll come back and readdress it, because you're absolutely right. It's just like a little
moving
blot of ink, and it just poof goes out. Thank you,
Mr. Enos.
Ditto.
And this will apply to number 8 too. I'll just keep us moving. Okay, so seeing no additional comments, Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes no, and the motion to approve the renewal purchase of Dreambox supplemental online math resource for 2023-2024 passes 4-1 with Ziegler abstaining. Moving on to item number would be 60, or previously item number 8, which is the approval of the purchase of Achieve 3000. Is there a motion?
I move for approval of the purchase of a Achieve 3000 for the 2023-2024 school year.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments besides the ones we already stated for the previous one? Okay, voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes no, and the approval to the purchase Achieve 3000 for 2023-2024 passes with a vote to 4-1 with Ziegler abstaining. That concludes all of new business. Well done, everyone. And if there are no additional, are there any additional comments, questions, statements? Okay, Mrs. Marinelli.
I would just like to thank members of the community for all their emails that they sent about our superintendent. I mean, the good thing is that some people, they like one of them. So that there was, some had a strong dislike and some had really strong likes. So I feel like I got a good representation from the community. And I did leave out one thing on Katrina Ward. Her grandson will be entering kindergarten in our school system. So that was another reason I thought that she would be a good candidate. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Enos.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up from last school year. I went to 4 graduations, went to Venice, Northport, Riverview, and Pineview's graduation, which I think is still going on at this point. But I did go to those. I had an absolutely, it was a wonderful time. It was great seeing the students graduate, and I could see the looks in their eyes, and it was really, really an awesome experience as a brand-new board member to be able to sit up there, especially at Riverview. That was the same exact stage and the same exact place when I graduated in 2020, or close to it. So, yeah, it was an excellent, it was really the same place and the same stage that all my kids and myself that went through. But I just want to say kudos to those schools. I couldn't attend all of them. Kudos to the schools. It was a great event. I really, really appreciated it, and what an awesome experience. I'm truly appreciative of it.
Yes, I agree. I wish I was able to be there. It's one of the areas I love. I pride myself for those weekends. Steve Cantis, you do an excellent job. It's like a marathon weekend. It is so fun, but the best part is seeing the families and the students and the staff when they give the hugs and diplomas. It's great. So congratulations to all of our graduates, and I hope everyone's enjoying their summer. I have a couple dates I want to highlight that are coming up. The superintendent finalist interviews will take place on Monday, June 12th, along with the Citizens Advisory Committee interviews, both starting at 9:30 a.m. The public is welcome to attend. I also want to note that we'll be recording the advisory committee's interviews session, but it will not be posted live because we're doing live in here, but they will be posted on each interview with the advisory committee and the superintendent finalists will be posted online, just not in a live fashion. Is that right? Sure. On the superintendent's page on SarasotaCountySchools.net, yeah, under their name. Okay. A town hall for the finalists will be held at Pineview School Student Union on Monday, June 12th from 6 to 8. The public is welcomed to attend. Individual board member interviews with the finalists will be held on Tuesday, June 13th, starting at 9:30 a.m. This is closed to the public. A special board meeting, and this will be individual interviews, by the way. They're not all the board, one-on-ones. A special board meeting will be held on Wednesday, June 14th at 9:30 a.m. to choose the next superintendent. The public is welcome to attend, and we will have public comment at that time. The next board meeting, regularly scheduled board meeting, is scheduled for Tuesday, June 20th at 6 p.m. with a workshop to be shortly announced as far as time. I want to estimate around 4 o'clock. And the next workshop, the next follow-up work session is scheduled for Wednesday, June 21st at 9:30, I'm sorry about today, 9:30 a.m. If there are no additional comments, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.